The beginning of World War III, originally scheduled for this time, has been postponed so that we can bring you the following program. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hans Conried, the voice of Fractured Flickers. The voice of Fractured Flickers. Have you any idea what it's like to spend 40 years developing pear-shaped tones and then to wind up as the voice of silent films? Well, I'll tell you what it's like. It's like doing a show live from Forest Lawn.
Here's your chance, America, to win all the things you've never needed. All you have to do is name the famous movie star who is standing in this crowd plain as day. Some of the fabulous motion pictures he has starred in are Tarzan of the Apes. Who can forget that poignant scene when Tarzan went ape? And can you ever forget him as the Lone Ranger, a sock performance? Remember that immortal cry, "Hi-yo, Silver!" And his award-winning role, "It came from beneath the earth." The prizes for last week's second-place winners: a pair of tight shoes to Old Man Withers, liquid chewing tobacco to 11243, a pogo stick for Paul Bunyan, an elephant for Al Schweitzer. And now, here is the big winner, Bubbles Lamar. She didn't have the right answer, but in the opinion of the judges, she came the closest. And now for this week's glorious prizes: a dozen aunts, a dozen uncles, your own moon, your own girls, a year's supply of dandruff, London, England, 8 bunion pads, a backyard barbecue, some home movies, and a year's supply of oatmeal. Follow these simple instructions. Write the mystery star's name on a blank sheet of newspaper and address the envelope to Crowd, Box 3. Then take it to your nearest mailbox. If your writing is illegible, simply mark an X on your wife and send her in. Bang! You're dead. Remember, the star is in this gathering. One final clue: he is Hollywood's happiest married man, and his wife just gave birth to quintuplets.
Always eager to do our bit toward promoting misunderstanding between the nations of the world, we on Fractured Flickers are this week inaugurating our own version of the Peace Corps. This event should be the greatest harbinger of international goodwill since the Boston Massacre.
As you know, we send envoys to backward foreign nations like this one here to improve our social relations with them. Now, the first to volunteer for our Peace Corps was this man, shown while he was still working for the Fractured Flicker studio. That's our producer there, supervising. Now, what made this man volunteer, of course, we'll never know. But volunteer he did, and his experience in a backward foreign country gave us great insight into the means for Peace Corps success. We owe a vote of thanks to this highly competent young man. The first thing we learned from him was this: regardless of the means of transportation you choose to leave this country, it's vital to arrive in a new country in a vehicle of suitable dignity. A good first impression is important, and we suggest this Lincoln Continental Touring Tractor for the impression of earthy dignity. Now, To be sure you're noticed, first do something interesting on the sociological level. To make a judgment on this, let me say it discourages that Yankee go-home attitude, and people will welcome you with open arms. Since practical jokers are loved by everyone, a few friendly pranks are guaranteed to get you off on the right foot, or whatever the case may be. Demonstrate your sense of fair play. They'll look up to you for it. Simple peasants are impressed by raw strength, so at the first opportunity, display the brute power of your finely tuned body. Having thus made a smart first impression, enter into simple peasant work. Demonstrate your willingness to work hard and a reluctance to sit down on the job. And never underestimate the value of education. If there's one thing everybody respects, it's a man who really knows his work. Working knowledge of animal husbandry will stand you in good stead. Little animal wifery won't hurt either. Peasants are more prone to accept a man who knows how to handle livestock. See, you'll observe they're very impressed here. Fractured Peace Corps members must realize the value of uprightness. It may make sleeping difficult, but you'll be on your toes and ready for the new day. And it can be chock full of surprises, too. Strange new animals, for example. What do you do when deep in a foreign country you suddenly find yourself face to face with a, you find, well, this is no time to admit ignorance. Remember, all eyes are on you. So application of the scientific method is in order. Experiment with the animal. Become familiar with it. Overcome its fear of man and show it who's boss. This is just one of many ways to keep it and the natives looking up to you. Meanwhile, continue your campaign of chummy horseplay. Of course, it may take time to worm your way into their hearts, but if you persevere, you'll finally earn your place among the folk. Still, nobody's perfect, so if all efforts fail, do the good thing and the noble thing. Leave quietly. Withdraw with dignity and grace. Or if you can't leave with grace, at least get her to help you with the luggage. Your departure should be a thing of beauty to pave the way for those who will follow you. Remember, you depart secure in the knowledge that you, our Fractured Flickers Peace Corps envoy, have made a lasting contribution to our foreign relations. It's not a bad idea, though, to pick up a hostage on the way out of town, just in case. Portable camouflage is handy, too. Oh, by the way, this film was actually shot on location in a backward foreign country, Alabama.
Ladies and gentlemen, we on Fractured Flickers are happy to have with us this evening a visitor from across the sea. A lovely lady indeed, a fine actress and a clever comedienne. Great Britain's answer to vitamin shots, Miss Diana DIORS.
Thank you, Hans. It's so nice to be here on Shattered Flickers.
That's Fractured Flickers.
Well, I know you do something dreadful to them.
Well, I'm sure you'll be delighted to know that after our interview today, we're going to serve tea.
Oh, well, could I have coffee instead?
Coffee?
Coffee.
Well, of course, if you insist. Hold the tea bag, George. Miss DIORS, tell me, are you a fan of Fractured Flickers?
Oh, I certainly am. I just love it when the horse talks back to the man.
Well, that's another program. On our program, we rewrite old movies and tell a ridiculous story, add our own words and sound effects to them.
And the poor things can't even fight back. Well, I think that's
A sticky wicket?
dirty pool.
Well, I'm sure our viewers would like to know something about British television, Miss Dawes. Is TV as big there as it is here?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Oh. What are the popular programs?
Well, there's Z Cars and Coronation Street, and that was the week that was. And then, of course, typically English programs like Gunsmoke and The Phil Silver Show.
American programs are popular, too.
Definitely. Of course, some of them have to change their names to something that our audiences can understand.
Such as?
Well, 77 Sunset Strip had to change its name to Soho Is My Beat. And the Beverly Hillbillies are now known as the Berkeley Squares.
That's a much better title.
But there's a lot of interchange between our countries in the entertainment business, Hans. American actors are working in England, the same as English actors are working here.
A sort of a hams across the sea, you could say.
No, I couldn't really.
Well, there is a great deal of interest here as to what happens in England. You know, I think we follow your election returns as closely as we follow our own. Incidentally, Miss Dawes, are you a conservative or liberal?
Well, it's all according to my mood. For instance, when it comes to buying a gown, I'm conservative. But when it comes to filling it out...
You're a liberal, I can see.
Perhaps you'd tell me something now, Hans.
Oh, anything.
Why was I invited to be on your program?
Well, now, for one thing, people get tired of just looking at old me and old movies. And you do brighten up the view considerably.
Oh, thank you.
But what I really wanted to ask you, what do you think the English audience would say if we were to show fractured flickers on English television?
I think they'd use that old British expression, Hans.
Oh, you mean top hole or wizard?
No. Bad show, old boy. Bad show.
I'm afraid of that. But anyway, thank you and good night, Miss Diana Dawes. And as we Americans say, cheerio and pip pip.
And as we English say, see you around the pool hall.
It's our pleasure now to welcome to Fractured Flickers one of those persons who makes movies such a fascinating business. Professional stuntman, Speed Riskin. Speed specializes in doubling for actors in dangerous scenes, and his cat-like balance and ability to take hazardous falls without injury have made his name a byword in the movie industry. So come in, Speed Riskin. Watch out for that lamp. Let's roll the next flicker.
This is another in the series of Minute Mysteries, in which you are invited to match wits with the world's greatest detective, Sherman Oakes. Now, Minute Mystery number 13, the case of the purloined denture. It all began one afternoon inside the palatial country estate of the steel magnate Jonathan Applegate. Applegate had decided to change his will, and for that purpose had summoned a local attorney, Supreme Court Judge Joseph Repstock.
Applegate, if you change your will, your life won't be worth a plug nickel.
But, heedless of the warning, Applegate directed his lawyer to call a gathering of all his relatives. Before the week was out, every Applegate was on his way. No sooner had the last relative arrived than a door leading to Jonathan Applegate's private study slowly opened. Very slowly opened. In fact, so slowly it was an hour later before it was fully open. Lights went out and... Eventually, Applegate's lifeless form fell to the floor. 1 week later in Washington, another door slowly opened, and out came the world's greatest detective, Sherman Oakes.
The game's afoot. The game's afoot. Oh, yes, the game's afoot.
Last week, remember, Oakes blew the sewer gang case wide open. Knowing that all Applegates returned to the scene of the crime, Oakes hurried to Philadelphia, where he questioned such shady characters as Peter Pocketpicker, who had picked a peck of pockets, and Stella Seller, who stole seashells by the seashore. Then at last, a solution. The trap was sprung, and the murderer caught. Now, who done it? Can you do what Sherman Oakes did? Can you solve this crime? Here are the clues. The murder knife, a man-eating duck, a sidewalk, poisoned water, a collection of various things, a flying goose, Profumo's address book. And now for the suspects. Harry Applegate, Mary Applegate, Teddy Applegate, Mother Applegate, Baby Applegate, Pippin Applegate, Winesap Applegate, and Applegate Turnover. And now you have just 60 seconds to name the killer. Time's up. If you named the butler, you were right. The butler did it.
And now, before our next flicker, just a couple of notes of interest. Thank you. That was interesting.
And now Glipton Soup brings you Teenage Tips starring Ricky Teenage.
That's right, gang. This is Ricky Teenage. And today I want to pass along some tips on popularity. So let's just check with the mailman and see what's bugging you cats out there the most. Merle Squink, a student at Edward Arnold High, writes, Mummy and Daddy bought me this Keen mirror and a Christian Dior suit, but the kids still say I don't look right. Here's a teenage tip, Merle. Pay more attention to your feet. When you're preparing to go out on that important date, remember that shoe polish can be a boy's best friend. Yes, plain old shoe polish. Just dab it on, polish it up to a high gloss, and you... On the shoes, Merle. Merle. Oh, forget it, Merle, and don't write in again. Now, gang, since we're on popularity tips, I can't stress how important it is to make a good impression when you enter a room. Good grooming isn't enough. You've got to have a smile on your face, good posture, and a confident manner, plus a few witty remarks to make.
What makes elephants wear tennis shoes? Knock, knock. Who's there? What has 4 wheels and flies?
Believe me, you've made an impression. Now, buddies, about athletics. Just remember that going out for a clean, wholesome sport at school is mighty important to your popularity. And remember, it's better to be punchy than unpopular. I'll be back in a minute with more teenage tips. But first, a word from the Glipton Soup people.
What's on the table that tastes like that? Must be something from
Glipton!
Must be something from Glipton. Trust Glipton.
And teenagers, when you eat your Gliptons, or anything else, remember what an important part in popularity table manners can play. Fat Charlie Dubin, a sophomore at Fidel Castro High in Birch City, writes,
When I eat beans in the school cafeteria with the other kids every day, the prettiest girl in school, Zsa Goldfinger, keeps staring on me. Am I doing something wrong?
Of course not, Charlie. Correct table manners like yours are often the object of close attention by your friends. Soon you will see that many of them will copy you. Because, Charlie, you've got class.
Dear Ricky Teenage, as you can see, I am every inch a lady. But when my boyfriends come to call and my father meets them in the living room, they always lose interest somehow. Why do you suppose this is? Signed, Wanda Jean Obese.
Wanda, I'd like to show you 2 fine kids that have worked this problem out for themselves. The father, in this case, also wanted to meet the young man who came to call on his lovely daughter, Lila Mae Stallcup. But the boy, John Fitzgerald Needleman, a pole vault champ at Attle of the Hun High, was desperately afraid that if he met Lila Mae's father, he, the father, might find out that he, the boy, drove a hot rod. But in this case, he was needlessly worried. The story turned out happily because it developed that Lila's father wasn't nearly as headstrong as they thought. In fact, his head was seriously weakened by a severe cerebral concussion. And now, finally, kids, let's look at a typical average teenage party in a typical average American home just like your own when your parents are away for the night. Yes, throwing a party like this when Mom and Dad are gone is the true road to popularity. The folks will appreciate the fact that you were at home instead of out on the streets with a lot of vandals. And gang, when the police show up, assist them in any way you can. That's important at all times. You'll find that if you meet the police halfway, they'll lead you on the right path. Yes, be popular with the police, too. You'll find if you string along with the fuzz will string along with you. If you go around with them, they'll go around with you. And they'll be more tolerant of your typical teenage driving habits. Habits that make you so popular with the bunch. Now, this is Ricky Teenage saying so long, gang. And call me if you'd like a tall, thin hot rod.
If any of you people in our audience would like to appear in one of our fractured flickers, here are the rules. You have to be an actor in silent pictures. You have to have an excellent sense of humor, and you have to be dead.
Foam, King of the Mad Dogs. Chapter 15, Wages of Sin. Well, Foam fans, as you remember, the mysterious Black Fairy stole the secret plans and kidnapped Sally Sweetmouth, Foam's best friend. Meanwhile, Captain Dick's yacht was in trouble, for Foam, locked in Stateroom B, attempted to alert the Coast Guard with a signal rocket. But being a dog, all he did was set the cabin on fire. Meanwhile, overhead, the Black Fairy's henchmen were dropping a deadly cargo of high explosives. Luckily, the wind changed, and they fell harmlessly on New York City. Back on board the steamer, Foam was attempting to put out the fire with a mosquito net. Remember, he is only a dog. By now, the smoke had reached the sensitive nostrils of the ship's firefighting crew. Springing into action, they not only doused the fire, but the passengers and the ship as well. Meanwhile, back on the small island, Foam's twin brother Froth, a full-blooded cocker, was retrieving for the king. Now, as you well remember, it is Froth's job to wait until the king fires his gun, and then bring back whatever was brought down. One day, the king shot a doe. A John Doe. Froth leaped into action, but due to an old case of rabies, fell short of his mark and instead retrieved the king. Meanwhile, Foam, brother to the now dead Froth, struggled ashore carrying a purse he had stolen from the purser. Ooh. Foam sped to the rescue. Meanwhile, Froth, only half dead, had taken a plane back to the States. Unaware that the Black Fairy and his henchmen were about to strike again.
Ready, aim, fire!
Is this the end of Froth? Don't miss Chapter 12, entitled The King's Revenge.
Ooh.
Meanwhile...
Well, it's been fun being with you this evening, but in the immortal words of Gypsy Rose Lee, the end is in sight.
1, 2.
This is Hans Conried saying good night for Fractured Flickers, the only television program that bears the seal of approval of your local Board of Health. Or needs it.